Hey everyone, I'm Greg Lambert with the Geek and Review, and I have our friend Sarah Glassmeyer here. And Sarah, I know you attend conferences all the time, but you have a kind of a unique way that you use the LTH directory. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I like conferences are great and I do attend the educational programming, but my favorite part and like the most important part for me, just for my gig, but also just because of my interest level, is hanging out in the exhibit hall. And when you go to these exhibit halls, there are, dozens, sometimes even hundreds of vendors to keep track of. And so this is like a perfect use case for what I want to talk about, but also in life. Like if you're listening to this podcast, I'm assuming you are interested in legal technology at some point. And like there are every day new products coming out, new changes to solutions. So the Legal Tech Hub directory is not just a beautifully well curated, maintained directory of legal tech products. It also is a tool that you can use. So when you are signed into Legal Tech Hub, you can create what we have is called the portfolio feature. So there's a little star by every listing, and you just click the star and it's added to your portfolio.
Hmm.
And within that, you can then subdivide it to solutions that you're already subscribed to, ones that you're just kind of thinking about. So you can put that in your watching column. And then also ones that you've reviewed, but you don't like, not for me right now, but you just kind of like put it to the side, but you don't lose it. And then whenever I update a listing or my staff updates a listing or the vendors themselves come in and like provide an announcement, you will get notified about that. So it's just a really nice way to kind of keep things organized. And then plus we have a feature within that you can keep notes. So how I use it is when I'm cruising around the exhibit hall and I see something, or I was watching, I was just at ABA Tech Show, and so I watched the Startup Alley. I just kind of keeping notes as I was doing that. I didn't have to keep a pen and paper. I could do it on my phone. I could do it on my iPad. And so it's all there now that I'm back home and at my desk and kind of saying, what the heck did I actually look at? So, and also, when like not during conference season, it's also a way to just keep track of things and just so one place you can go to and keep referring back and keep getting updated about the information.
All right. Well, that's a great suggestion on how to use the directory. Thanks, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Welcome to the Geek and Review, the podcast focused on innovative and creative ideas in the legal industry. I'm Marlene Gabauer.
And I'm Greg Lambert. And Marlene, we talk a lot of theory on here about legal pricing and where we think things should go. But today we're gonna get past that, and we're gonna get into some real hard numbers. And we're thrilled to welcome back one of our favorite data geeks. I think that's what we coined the last time.
Hmm.
Kris Satkunas. Kris, good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thanks for having me back.
So Kris is the director of strategic consulting at LexisNexis CounselLink. She has over 20 years of experience advising corporate legal departments on how to use data and drive better business decisions.
Yeah, and she's also the mastermind behind the CounselLink Trends Report, which
Hmm.
she's been authoring now 12 years. What's
It's
the
something
number
like
now?
that. Yep,
Yeah.
close enough.
So we're excited to have you on and ready to jump into the numbers.
All right, cool.
So Kris, I recently sat in on a webinar that you did with Amy Borsetti from Harbor, and you were combining your CounselLink invoice data, which represents over 75 billion in legal spend, with Harbor's law department survey data. And I think it painted an incredibly rich picture of where costs are heading. So when you put those two massive data sets together, the objective invoice data and the subjective survey data,
That's the
uh,
data dream right there.
that's the data dream. What surprised you most about the current direction of legal spend?
So, because I look at the objective data a lot, I don't think there was a whole lot that surprised me there. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more here. But when I look at the survey data, one of the things that it said is that about only, I think, about a third of the respondents expect legal spend, meaning outside counsel legal spend, to increase this year, maybe into next year compared to the past. But again, when I look at my data, year over year, trends data shows every driver of spend is increasing. Billing rates keep going up aggressively. AFAs, marginal adoption. The biggest, the most expensive firms keep on gaining share. So all of those things point to increased spend, right? And demand is not going down either. So, I mean, that just says to me, fundamentally, something has to change, right? If corporations are really going to keep legal costs down, it's not going to be business as usual. So I feel like we're moving maybe toward more in-house work, using tech finally a little bit more to make work more efficient. So I think that statistic, probably from the subjective data, was most surprising to me, that so few people think outside counsel spend is going to increase.
Hmm.
It, you know, we hear that whenever like there's a dip in the economy or, there's pressure on the GCs to rein in cost. One of the things that gets rolled out, whether it's 2008, 2012,
Last year.
2020, last year, is, we're gonna handle more of this ourselves. And I've never really seen that come to fruition. Is it
Yeah,
now? I think I know the two letters that everyone thinks will make a difference this time. But do you
right.
you think the AI will enable that to actually happen this time around?
Well, I mean, I do, but I think it's only certain types of work, right? So the higher end litigation, the bet the farm stuff, the important deals, that's not ever staying in-house. But I think that some of the more commoditized work, yeah, I mean, I've definitely talked to some of our customers who say that they put together a business case to hire another attorney in like their employment work or something like that. So, um, yeah, I mean, those two letters, could this be the year? Are those two letters gonna start really making a
This
difference?
could be it.
Could be. Yeah,
We keep saying it. It's like, it's going to be the
that's right.
time.
Yeah. You made a point in the webinar that really kind of stood out, and that is when clients go through the competitive bidding with the RFPs, when they focused pretty much primarily on the cost, that you were saying that could actually be a problem. So when a lot of people think of RFPs, they think, well, that's a driver to get costs down. So do you mind kind of unpacking that for the audience to what you mean by that could be a problem?
Yeah, so it's not just cost, right? So, outside of the legal profession, if you were putting something out to bid, like putting an addition on your house, are you really going to go with just the cheapest bid? You're probably going to consider other factors as well, like their experience and whether you really think they're going to deliver what you want, right? So, I mean, I think that customers are looking for, or they should be looking for it if they're not in their RFP responses, how do the firms differentiate themselves? And that, at a minimum, it could be that firms are communicating that they really understand the legal issue and why it's an important matter to the client, right? Like looking for that depth of understanding from the firm. And expertise, of course, comes into play, what they've done in similar cases. But I've also seen things like communicating information about, well, this is the legal team that we would bring to you to handle this. It's not just, this one partner, but who would the team be? There was a time not too long ago when that included information about the diversity of those
Yeah, I was
timekeepers, right?
wondering, is that off limits now?
I don't see it. I'm not seeing it being asked anymore. I don't know that it's really off limits, but it seems to people feel like it is, and it's not really being asked. Um, but all of those things, we're not talking about bidding on commoditized, repeatable work, right? So cost is a factor, and I think that Amy said that well when she was talking about this in our webinar the other day, that the important thing about the cost component of an RFP, or just going to RFP, signals to the firm cost matters, right? So they're going to pay attention to that, but all those other things are part of the equation and have to balance it out. So yeah, it's more than just cost.
So last year, we talked about in-house firms using more data for kind of benchmarking and for negotiation. That was sort of a growing trend. And I'm curious if this year we have continued to see that. How common is it now for legal departments to have the kind of data hygiene necessary to pull this off?
So, yeah, it's an interesting question. I think that as more and more organizations, the vast majority of, good-sized organizations, are using some sort of enterprise legal management system. In the configuration of that system, it kind of forces them to create some hygiene, right? Like categories of types of work that they're going to be billing, setting up some criteria for the types of bills that they will receive. And I think that consultants who are helping set those up are getting better and better at understanding that the data that comes out is only as good as how you organize how the data is going to come in. But I mean, I would say that, so just from a hygiene perspective, I would say something like 3/4 of organizations that have an ELM in place are good enough in their hygiene. That sounds kind of gross to say that, man, their hygiene was good enough, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like a lot of companies let a law firm bill a flat fee as if it's hourly. So they do that, and then it looks like you have a timekeeper who billed you $20,000 an hour, and that creates dirt in the data that you then have to find a way to filter out. But those sorts of outliers stand out, and they're pretty easily eliminated. I think we had at least one of these within the webinar that you saw. I like to use box and whisker charts to show the span of data, like hourly rates, and that outlier that I just described, that'd be a whisker, right? It would fall outside of the box, right? It's the box that any good analyst is focused on and trying to understand what's normal, what's actually going on. So, so I think the data is better, and you can't get hung up on those small outliers because they're always going to be there. You just have to have a way to identify them and focus on what's important. I do think that a lot of organizations could still do a better job at tagging their work. So, for instance, you could categorize, and I've seen this, like litigation is litigation. We just call it all litigation if it happens to fall under that. But there's a lot of apples and oranges within litigation. So if you're trying to benchmark what you should be paying for, like IP litigation versus employment litigation, it's probably different. So you
Yeah.
do need to
Very
separate
different
like that
workflows.
out.
So, mhm.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we're getting better, but there's lots of opportunity to improve, and um, yeah, data could always be cleaner, but at some point you have to say it's clean enough that we're going to start working with it.
So if GC if a GC wanted to start doing this, I mean, would it be their financial data? Would they be kind of focusing on kind of the core, sort of core areas? Like what would be the best way to approach it?
So I would say, I mean, I think that tagging of types of work is super important, right? Be able to break down your work into different categories. And then, yeah, it's definitely the financial data meaning what's coming in on the invoices, right? How many hours were billed for hourly work, how many hours were billed at what rates, and then breaking that down by law firm, by timekeeper to be able to slice and dice it as is needed. As long as you've got data that's clean enough. If you don't have some kind of ELM in place, then you kind of have to start fresh, right? I might almost just leave all the other stuff in the past. You really can't go to your finance team and ask for this data because they're not pulling apart the invoice, right? They're picking up which part of the business should we charge for this work, but they're not breaking it down into the detail that you need.
Yeah, I often wonder if um sort of where to start sometimes if you are using AI do you go back to historical data prior to AI, or do you just start with AI as a base and, it's because it's going to improve and see where you go from there?
Yeah, right, right. It's a good question. I mean, I think I would argue with let's just start with what we have now, because that you can fine tune and feel good about what you're working with now. Going back, you've got probably a lot of noise in that data that might interfere with things. But you can start with what you have now and then maybe take a little slice of what you had and do a little pilot of some of the historic data before you roll it out full force.
While we're fleshing the data out a little bit more, I'm curious on your end of things. Are you able to implement more of a AI tool strategy on parsing the data? Does it help you kind of see through some of that and kind of fix it on your side, or is it still too messy when it comes to you?
Yeah, I mean it's so our product team, as we are developing our product, is certainly working on pulling AI into more and more functions of how CounselLink reads bills and evaluates them. So that's certainly it's improving and will continue to improve. For me, as the data geek, um, I'm still I'm relying on the database that we create when all of that data gets scrubbed off of the invoices and gets put into this database. But I am playing with AI tools for me to search that database and to organize that data and to look for trends. So I don't know. There are just so many opportunities with how AI gets used, but yeah, it's definitely playing a bigger and bigger role, and will continue to in everything around analytics for sure.
I'm a little disappointed. I was expecting you to have like a murder board up with all the data points and then red string connecting all of the different pieces. So, but
Next
next
year,
year.
Greg.
All right. That's so. There was one thing that you said at the Texas Trailblazers meeting that we had a few weeks ago, and you talked about the latest data showing that partner rates. For a while there, they were around 3% increases a year, and now they're right at 5%. And this is an aggregate across the board. And but the real double take moment was also seeing and we talked about this last year when you were on. With the associate rates, and just how high associate rates are getting. So, and and I think we're all seeing that, hours are kind of flat, maybe down, for legal work, across many firms, but the rates are going up. So, are we headed to some kind of structural, breaking of the system that we're coming to? How do you maintain, uh, both of those at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, I think that those associate rates as high as they are, it's definitely interwoven with what you're talking about. So yeah, the model's not going to work if you don't have the hours to support it, right? The law firm model as it is, without being able to bill all the hours historically, something has to give there. Um, and I think the model is breaking. I, honestly, I kind of hope the model is breaking. Let's like shake things up a little bit, but I think people are going to hold on to it kicking and screaming for quite a while, and they'll probably start by hiring fewer associates. Right? I think I've heard some pockets of that starting to happen. But the point that you raise about the $2,000 an hour associate, right? That is not the associate that AI is likely to replace. Right? In
Mm,
fact, the data that I look at, so I look at like the median partner and what they're billing and how much their rate went up. But the fact is, the data shows and has shown this for the past couple of years that those partners and associates already at the higher end, so that $2,000 an hour associate is raising their rate more like 7% compared to the 5% average. So those that are already the more senior people, that should be the more experienced people, are raising their rates more. And I think, I'll hypothesize that there's some recognition there from law firms that those people and their expertise can still be billed, right? So let's try to monetize that as much as possible, some revenue protection by increasing their rates more, knowing that the more junior people are the ones that we might not be able to bill as much, if at all. So yeah, it's actually not until recently that I started paying attention to that, and I think it is tied up in what we're talking about here with AI starting to sneak in.
Yeah. So the gap will continue to grow, and the rich get richer.
I think so. And that's what the data has been
Great.
showing us for the past couple years. And I think again, that's in defense of the model, right? That's
Yeah.
people saying, well, the only way this model is going to work is so if the hours are going down, I guess the rates have to go up. But I'm not going to be able to bill for some of these people, so I've got to raise the rates on the people that are still going to be able to bill. So yeah, it feels that way.
All right, Kris, I want to get a little provocative here. So, we've been hearing about alternative fee arrangements for years, but your data shows they've been stuck at around 8 to 10% of matters for a while. And, now that AI is starting to bring those hours down, the efficiency argument for flat fees is changing. So the question is, have AFAs missed their window of opportunity? I mean, if the hours are already shrinking because of technology, does the argument for flat fees disappear?
Um, the efficiency argument is likely disappearing. Yes. And if that is the argument for AFAs, then it does pose a problem for the model for sure. But I don't know. So I actually think the window, and we've talked about this before, I'm so sad that AFAs have not taken off because there's so many wonderful reasons that they should have taken off. But intellectually, people weren't ready to embrace them. But I think that window may finally be opening because people are going to be forced to take it because, again, of those two little letters that are going to change things. So if hours are shrinking, law firms have to repackage their services, I think, in terms of value received instead of the hours that had to get churned to do that work. And so that's, your point about the efficiency. So they can't package it that way. An astute general counsel um, isn't going to pay a flat fee that's approximately what the hours used to add up to on the shadow bill that they used to ask for, right? Like we see a lot of that. Makes me a little bit crazy that general counsels ask for shadow bills. They have a flat fee, but then they want to see how much hourly work was done as well. So they're not going to pay that larger flat fee for what the work used to cost. So I think that the billing, the AFA model that will start moving, that will hopefully we'll start seeing more is billing that's tied more to outcomes, to value, somehow saying what is the value of this matter as opposed to what did it take to get to it.
Hmm.
So let's
Yeah.
I'm going out on a limb and saying that window is opening
We'll be
finally.
asking next year.
I know.
Yeah, well, I
All
think
right.
about it, it's like, the value of the value of the work hasn't changed. The time it takes to do it has changed, but the ultimate value of it hasn't changed. So how
So
do we
then,
price that?
so then what's the other value, right? So how else can law firms add value on top of that? How can they extrapolate what they've done on that matter and help to alert their customers to things they should be looking out for down the road, right? It's other value adds that
Mhm.
I think have to start coming from that relationship for a general counsel to believe that there really is that extra value. And that, and I'm not saying that's easy, but I think that's where we're going to have to start moving.
I think AI opens the ability to do that, it just opens that time window to do that.
Yeah.
So, um, last year, Kris, you introduced a new metric into the report, and that is market share by new matter spend.
Yeah.
So instead of looking at the total annual spend, which may include some of the old matters that get brought over, the report analyzed new matters opened each year to determine what the future market share was. So last year in that first year of reports, you determined that large firms are gaining and not losing the share of the new work. That there's actually more work going to the more elite firms, the bigger firms. And then during the webinar, I thought I heard you say that this year more of the day to day might be going to smaller regional firms. One, did I hear that right? And two, if so, what has changed?
So you kind of heard that right, but you didn't hear from me. So and that's where I think looking at real data, like we have in counseling, benchmarking differs from survey data. So in the session that we did, it was both a combination of the benchmark data and survey data. So the two are, I don't know, the two are definitely complementary, and it was interesting to see how they lined up. But in my experience, and for the most part, survey data tends to give people the opportunity to paint a rosier picture, a more hopeful picture. So the survey data that our friends at Harbor presented said that 2/3 of respondents had completed or were working on an initiative to strategically shift work to smaller firms. So there's a lot of wiggle room within that, right? Um, and that's good.
Wishful thinking,
Right.
maybe?
Well, that
It's like
or
we're
they're
looking at it.
working on it.
Yeah, we're working on it.
We're thinking
So,
about it.
It's like our AI ROI. We're working on
we're working, yes. But the data doesn't show it, right? So,
it.
yes, I think last year was the first year we looked at that new metric, and I looked at it again. But for just new matters open in 2025. Same thing, large law still gaining share of that new work. So I don't know, I always feel like a little bit of a Debbie Downer after people report stuff like survey data. I'm like, well, data doesn't support what you're saying, but it doesn't mean it's not coming, right?
Yeah.
So if they are evaluating that and starting to move work down, it will take some time to see that. So, I'm still hopeful that GCs will realize how much of an opportunity that there is there, but we're just not seeing it yet.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter what the data says, it's how I feel. That's what's important.
That's right. I'll go along with that. Of course.
Uh, Kris, before we get to the crystal ball, I know you spent most of your time immersed in the CounselLink Insight benchmarking database, but we've been asking our guest, what are you reading or listening to or following outside of your own reports to kind of keep you cognizant of what's going on in the legal industry and in business of law.
Yeah. So I'm sorry to say I don't have a go-to. If you're hoping that I'd come up with a particular blog that I read or a particular site I'm paying attention to, obviously I've got a feed that has an awful lot coming into it. So I'm looking at a lot of things, but probably like you, I'm always looking for new webinars or events, like the one I ran into you at a couple weeks ago. Looking for something that's a fresh take or something new, because maybe because I spend so much time looking at data, I think I actually get more value from using my other time talking to people, hearing what they're really doing and asking them to validate some of the things that I'm seeing in the data. So it's always good for me to, talk to, whether it be our own customers, people in the industry, to dig into things a little bit more. And also, I'm always looking for ideas of if there are things that they would like me to be able to research, right? We do have this great database of so many invoices and matters running through it that if other topics come up, I'm always interested in hearing those for that reason. So no one specific thing, but yeah, spent a lot of time looking at different articles and listening to what people are talking about.
Okay, Kris, it is time for the crystal ball question. And I know we did this last year, so we'll do it again this year. We looked back at your prediction from last year, and we'll talk about that and then hear your predictions for this year. So in 2025, what you were saying, I'm going to paraphrase it, that firms are going to increase their rates even more than what we've been seeing, that things have leveled out about 5% for the past few years, and that you could see it going up to 6 or 7%, and that you're hoping there would be pushback on those rates. And first of all, like how correct were you as far as
I
this
think she was
year's?
pretty good.
I was gonna say, I think she hit it in terms of this year's data. And then, looking forward, as AI becomes integrated into these workflows, are we gonna see like a real shift to, some form of value-based pricing?
Yeah. So, I mean, I hate that I was right, right? It's like business as usual. Things, the trend keeps going along. Doesn't take much of a crystal ball to see that. But I will go out on a limb, right? I am hopeful that we have finally entered into a real age of disruption, so to speak. And that we will start seeing some traction 2026, maybe 2027, probably even more of that value-based billing starting to show up in some pockets that we haven't seen it before. Not just flat fees, but real other types of billing, like we were talking about. I still think, though, that for rates, I still think, based on what we were talking about before, I think that they're probably going to go up even more than that 5, 6,
Wow.
7% as many firms try to optimize what's left of the billable hour model, right? Let's get as much as we can out of people that we're able to bill. So I wouldn't be surprised if, at least at the high end, that we start seeing those more senior lawyers increase their rates even more than they have in the past.
That's just really depressing. And it seems very short-sighted. Like now would seem to be the time to get ahead on like, look, it's coming. Like let's get ahead of this trend before, and be ready for it. But
But is that what's going to separate some firms from the others, right? Those that are holding on and trying to hold on to that model versus those that are
mhm.
trying to face what's coming and change their model. I think that there will be a split between those. Um, I don't know. Maybe the data will help me parse firms that way, right? Those that are forward thinking versus those desperately clinging.
Well, see,
Whole new report.
yeah,
Great.
Yeah,
there was a little sliver of hope there in that. So,
yeah, that's right. I know. I'm not a Debbie Downer, really.
well, Kris Satkunas, Director of Strategic Consulting at CounselLink, thank you again for coming back this year and sharing all of these insights. It's always a pleasure to jump into the data and talk to real numbers with you.
Thanks for having me again. Yeah, enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, thanks, Kris. And thanks to all of you, our listeners, for listening to the Geek in Review. If you enjoyed this dive into data, please share this with a colleague.
And Kris, where's the best place for listeners to go to find the latest trends report and maybe connect with you as well?
They can connect with me probably on LinkedIn. It would be the best way. And they could ask me for a copy of the report that way, or they could go out to the CounselLink.com website and find a link there as well.
Sounds good. And as always, the music you hear is from Jerry David DeSica. Thank you, Jerry, and bye, everybody.